For this 4th of July, let's remember another 4th of July, 159 years ago, when times were tough, but we were about to turn the corner as a nation. I think it's something worth remembering in this day and age. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So 159 years ago, we were in the middle of the Civil War. Now, it's easy sometimes for us to get lost in the present and forget that we've been through tough times as a nation before. And certainly the ultimate example of that in many respects is the Civil War. So I was reading today about how many people are feeling discouraged and feel like we don't have anything to celebrate on the 4th of July. Well, at such a time, it's probably worth remembering 1863, when literally thousands of people were dying to try to keep our nation together and end slavery. And that July 4th, 159 years ago, was something to celebrate because, of course, it was the day that it became clear that the Union Army had won both the battles of Gettysburg in the east and Vicksburg in the west, really marking the turning point in the war. A turning point after which, really, it was clear that the Union Army was ultimately going to win the war. Now, that didn't mean that there weren't struggles ahead, and that didn't mean that there weren't difficulties ahead. But a couple months after the battles had ended, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech, a very short speech, and one which people really didn't notice at the time, which has come to be one of the strongest statements in the history of our country about what our country is about and why it's worth fighting for. And in times like these, I think it's worth remembering. So with that, let's remember 1863, when my favorite president, Abraham Lincoln, delivered the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Well, in this day and age, let's remember the words of Abraham Lincoln, and remember that this nation is worth fighting for, and that we should continue to do so. Well, if you want to see some other words of wisdom that Abraham Lincoln gave us, why don't you check out this video over here that I recorded on Thanksgiving, where I read what is actually my favorite speech by Abraham Lincoln, the second inaugural. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress, and have a happy 4th of July.